Hello, everyone, and welcome to Conversations with Bafana. I'm Bafana, and today we are at the All African Business Leaders. Oh goodness, I'm tongue twisted. All African Business Leaders Awards, and I am with an award winning. I mean, what is going on here? I'm so excited. The award winner of the Young Business Awards, or Young Business Leader,
Yes, young
Young
business, yes.
Business Leader in Africa, the whole continent.
True. The
Geez, guys.
pressure.
Oh my word. Melvyn Lubega, how are you?
I'm good, thank you. It's been an incredible evening.
Of
Really humbling.
course.
Wow.
So tell us why you won. Who are you, Melvyn?
I don't know why I won, so this is why I might go out and be asked for an invoice later. I don't know, but I think very fortunate to, I guess, to build businesses in the technology space, and so we ultimately build technology businesses and invest in technology businesses across Africa,
Yeah.
and so a tech entrepreneur and investor.
Ooh, tech entrepreneur and investor.
Yes,
Now, the world of tech is very exciting, especially
yes,
now that we're approaching the fifth industrial revolution, etc. And there are obviously countries that have already emerged into that. Tell
yes.
us why tech and why was it so important for a digital product emerging from Africa to Africans?
So I think everyone knows the expanse of Africa. You're talking about, the population, the 54 countries. And so the power of tech is in the scalability. It allows solutions to scale.
Mm,
And so what you often find is tech enables greater access and greater reach. And I always believe that the greatest value is created when solving the greatest problems.
yes.
And so from that perspective, Africa, we're blessed with many opportunities to create value. And so where we focus primarily has been in education and logistics,
Mm.
just because we felt that those are very close to home, given our own experiences. But I think it's a very exciting time to be building technology in the continent.
Mm. And then what does your company do exactly and what
Yeah,
problem is it
so
solving?
so I guess the award was won under our group of companies called Baobab. I guess our first business was a company called Go One, which is yesterday the world's largest online corporate training library.
Yeah.
So we bring together about 100,000 courses, videos, short books into one subscription, and offer that across 60 countries. And then more recently, been more active on the venture capital side of things. So we partner with one of the largest firms in Europe on the VC side of things to ultimately back the next generation of
Mm.
entrepreneurs building in Africa. And so that's called Brigger.
Yeah. It's very interesting, but I'm sure
Yeah.
there's someone out there saying, okay, he looks like me. Almost sounds like me, but
Thank you.
why is he not me? Why am I not that rich? Why don't I have an award? Tell us, what were your foundational pillars that kind of enabled you, 8 years later, to be where you are now? Because you're very solid in who you are and what it is that you're producing, especially in the digital space.
Yeah. Look, I'm very fortunate to come from a very loving family. I think, like in Africa, community is everything. And I think having, had a very large family, I'm very grateful for that. I think just that support. I think when someone believes you can do it, you'll do it.
Mm.
And I think just having a family where they love you, regardless of whether you come with the A or not, it's not like an African parent you're hiding from. And so I think that's definitely been my North Star. And I think ultimately we all seek to serve our communities. And so I think just growing up, your community is your family, then it's like your suburb, then it's like your school, then it's like, and for me, I feel like the continent's my community.
Right.
And so it's a privilege to be able to, I guess, leverage my limited experience to give back to a continent that's given so much to me. I think I travel
Mm.
around the world a lot. And sadly, our best export as a continent is our people. And, it's almost saying like, guys, let's go home and build.
Yeah.
And so it's a privilege to be able to build and stay on the continent at the same time.
Yeah. And I mean, especially being in the tech space, did you gain any, I guess, how do you say, government support in your venture? Because it's quite large and, anything within tech or the digital space at times doesn't have
It's interesting,
that
the
much
first
support.
African government we worked with was 6 years into our journey. So yeah, and it was just like we were, because we've worked with governments in Europe, America, Australia, but in Africa it was a bit difficult. And
Why do you
so,
think that's so? Is it not understanding what it is that you're producing or finding value in it?
look, I never know the reason. I think it's also about like being able to come at the right time. And so we're fortunate, for example, our solution in South Africa, at least in the last local government elections, we're able to use our platform to train all of the new elected
Oh,
officials.
wow.
And it's really interesting because, often in tech, you're like, it can be accessed everywhere, it's in the cloud. But literally, if you go to every single municipality, even the one in Puff Ada, Northern Cape, where there's no reception, seeing the solution work,
Oh,
and also
wow.
because your counselors are in their 30s and as old as 82, and seeing how they interact with your tech is really phenomenal. So for me, it was really both humbling to be able to leverage our global experience on the continent, more importantly, to see the access creation through the solution. And so working with governments, but ultimately, it's a long-term journey. Because
Yeah.
ultimately, government is the biggest employer. They are the biggest buyer. And also they can have the greatest impact in their reach.
Yeah, I mean, in challenges, especially when talking all things digital, I mean, infrastructure, understanding, etc.
At some point, I mean, like, so example, so we have our product across 60 countries, have teams in about 15 countries. And, you know, nowhere else in the world do they ask about offline capabilities. Right? But in the context, when you have a break in connection and someone's learning, that can really take away from the learning experience, the learning outcome. And so that's why I think to your earlier point around building African solutions for Africa is
Mm.
also important. And I think this is where, it's not only about your consumer power, but also how you engage technology, right? Same way, like if you have a machine learning model, it isn't trained for African voices or African skin hues, you won't get the same sort of benefit. And that's why it's so important
Yes.
for us to engage with technology, even that at the cutting edge.
Right. I appreciate what you're saying because I'm in the podcasting space.
Yes.
And what you find is that where the podcasting streaming platforms, Spotify, Apple, and so on, they don't necessarily have monetization room for people for like me.
Yeah.
Because I'm from Botswana,
Yes.
I will get a notification saying monetization is not available in your country.
Imagine. And the pull is strong now.
And it's quite strong. It's a bit strong and it's stronger now.
That's
But
true.
imagine that I'm going through that, but I'm trying to monetize this creativity that I have, and it becomes so difficult for the creative sector. And I'm very passionate about the creative sector. So how do you think the creative sector can really leverage your platform or just the idea that what you started?
Yeah, look, I mean, so look, our platform is a learning one. And so the good thing is there, it's about, we exist to help people unlock a positive potential through a love for learning.
Oh, I love that.
And so from that perspective, I mean, creative or otherwise, there's opportunity to really unlock your positive potential through learning and the love of learning. I mean, recently acquired a business in Germany called Blinkist, and it's like short book summaries, and highly recommend it if you haven't subscribed yet. And I mean, just for me, I mean, we're all busy people. Being able to go there and actually be able to learn a quick topic, get the highlights or snippets of a book is so important. But I think even outside of the work we do, I mean, some of the entrepreneurs we invest in just really doing exciting stuff with generative AI. I think in the creative space, I mean, if you think
Oh,
about it now,
absolutely.
I mean, some of my friends, I'm not an influencer, so I'm a simple guy, but I mean, you could
Says the
literally,
award winner.
but you could literally get to the point where you could use generative AI to create a script, to create the audio. We can do like, with 11.io, like do your voice recording and stuff. And you can actually use deepfake to create a video. So you could do your content creation all with AI. And the question is, how do you do that with scale? And that's where you can become unstoppable in the creative space, as an example.
Yeah, and what do you think is maybe setting us back in comparison to maybe European countries? Because you're so well traveled, I'm sure you've been able to kind of compare and contrast and say, okay, we have the talent, but why are you so far
It
ahead?
depends. I think different comparisons. I think compared to, let's say, our North American peers, I think we're less confident. And I think we don't embrace failure. I think the problem is in Africa, we'll build things quietly, whereas, because failure is seen as like a taboo, and it's like you failed in life. Whereas, in America, you can go to LA and attend the FailCon and be like, some guy will be like, I am 2 fails away from my unicorn. And it's like he embraces that. I think that's the issue where there's that taboo, where I think,
Yeah.
and it's almost, we impress it upon ourselves. And I think that's where we
Mm,
almost bring it. And also the other side, I think we often, when someone does well, we'll often try to justify how they did well because they had someone up, because their dad did that, or because they had that access there. It's always been like,
absolutely.
so we celebrate you, let's build together. And so one of the comments I made in my acceptance speech was, we continually fight over who has the biggest sandcastle on the beach, while our peers build skyscrapers on the beachfront.
Ooh,
And I think that's where we miss each other
so
often on the
good.
continent.
So good. So instead of competing, collaborate.
Exactly.
Yeah. And then what's the future for Baobab? Really, what's the future for Melvyn? Melvyn.
So look,
Melvyn. Melvyn.
my career ambition is to create 100,000 sustainable jobs.
Oh, 100,000.
And so we only at 100. We're very far at 100, at 1,100. One of the other winners, Mo Dweji, his company I think employs 38,000.
Yeah.
So we also got to start progressing to those numbers now.
So being in a platform like this and
Yeah.
engaging with other African giants within business, what does that bring to you in terms of, the future of African entrepreneurship?
I think one, it's exciting. I think the themes of the night were more around collaboration. How do you more together?
Yeah.
I think that was very powerful. I think especially in light of the African Continental Free Trade Agreement and what that unlocks for the continent. So that's very positive. I think more often than not we've always been more adversarial. So that's very exciting. And also it's a reminder that a lot's been done, there's a lot more to do.
And And then for you, on a personal note,
Yeah.
we all know that perseverance is one of the key elements of being an entrepreneur.
Yeah.
You've been around for a long time, etc., etc. Knock on
Yeah.
wood. You've been around for a long time. What
Yeah.
advice would you give, your fellow entrepreneurs, those who are in startups, etc.,
Yeah. I think
especially in tech?
I think two things. I think don't be afraid to start small but dream big.
Mm.
I think more often than not, when two things happen. We either dream too big that we never get started because we want to be perfectionists, or we start too small and we never get critical mass and have real impact. And so I think it's important to walk before you run, but don't forget it's a race.
Walk before you run, but don't forget it's a race. Said
Yeah.
like a true award winner. Thank you so much, Melvyn.
Yeah,
It's
thank you
been
very much.
amazing. And how do
Thank you.
people find you online?
Online, LinkedIn, Instagram, Melvyn_Lubega.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's where we're at.
And obviously on my podcast, you're gonna
Holla
see.
back.
See him. Thank you so much for joining us and see you next time.